right. Hello. I am joined by Melissa Smallwood, and she's going to talk about foster care and how she went from a former foster youth to now fostering. And so, Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit of an overview?
Okay, hi, I'm Melissa Smallwood. I was in foster care as a child and when I was in middle school. And then I went on in the future to become an adoptive parent and then a foster parent. And then now we are just a family of adopted kiddos and some biological kiddos. And they're all almost grown now.
Oh, wow. You don't look old enough to have grown kids. So tell me about your career as well. What do you do now?
Sure. So
Mhm.
I am a licensed professional counselor and a family coach. I work primarily with foster and adoptive families and biological families that are involved in the child protective system.
Mhm.
Um, and I work some with couples as well.
Oh, good. So that's awesome that you do that. There's not enough of those types of people who are specialized in mental health, make less um, that work with foster and adoptive
Yeah.
kids and their family and their
Mhm.
adoptive parents or foster parents who don't really understand what's going on. So thank
Yes.
you for doing that. um, so I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Being a foster youth, what were your experiences like overall?
Overall, I always say that the biggest trauma for me of being in care was that I was separated from my little brothers.
Mhm,
That was the hardest part of it. I initially went into a group home,
mhm,
and they were in another home, and we never lived together again. So
mhm,
that was probably the biggest trauma for me. Um,
mhm,
my group home experience was not positive. I had led a very sheltered life up until the point of entering care. I had never been to public school and had been homeschooled, and I was in my first year of private school at that point. And so the group home experience was very interesting. My first night there, the girl in the bunk above me lit her bed on fire. And so I say I was literally baptized by fire into the foster care system. Thankfully, I think they saw quickly that I was not a good fit for that environment, and I was placed in an actual foster home. Um,
mhm,
my first foster home, they were very nice, but very kind of aloof. And I was just really uncomfortable. I didn't stay there for very long. And then my second foster family, um, the foster mom, now I say this as an adult with
mhm.
perspective. I did not
Okay.
feel this way as a young teenager, but that foster mom really poured into me
Mhm.
in a lot of ways that left lasting impact on my life.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. I homeschool my kids. So it's interesting that you went from being homeschooled to foster care.
Mhm.
So my question kind of goes off of your foster families that you went
Mhm.
to. What did they do well? Which you've already mentioned one thing. What did they do well? And then we're going to contrast that with, of course, what could they have done better?
Mhm.
Hmm.
The foster mom that I was talking about that I feel like made a really positive impact on my life,
Hmm.
she didn't take my behavior personally. I was pretty disrespectful. I was a runner, quote unquote. I ran away. And I would refuse, to eat at the family dinner table. And I gave her a hard time about just about everything. She never once lost her patience with me. She never once was rude or, anything like that. And um, a few weeks into my stay, I think looking back, she must have started to pay attention to what motivated me. And I was very musically inclined and had taken voice lessons and flute lessons and piano lessons before I went into care. And so she had a lady at her church start giving me piano lessons. She got me involved. It was a tiny little church in a tiny little West Virginia town, um,
Hmm.
but they convinced them to put me in the adult choir. And those ladies loved on me and gave me a lot of positive feedback and attention. So I think that she just really paid attention instead of focusing on all the things that I was doing wrong,
Mhm.
and all the ways that I was acting out. She really focused on my strengths and kind of brought those out. And looking back, my behavior subsided in a lot of ways because she kept me really busy. And that
Yeah,
was smart.
that was smart. That was amazing. And
Yeah.
actually, that she searched for those resources for you
Yes.
and that she wasn't aloof and, you know,
Yeah.
taking
And
her.
20 years later, on a Mother's Day, I found her on Facebook
Oh,
and reached out and let her know. Like, I couldn't see it back then through my pain and through my hurt, uh,
mhm.
but you made a major impact on my life, and so we're still friends now.
No, that's awesome. That's what
Yeah.
well, not every, but that's what I would like to see for all foster parents to make that kind of an impact and a statement and really pour, like you said, the word pour into the children that come to their house.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you think from all of your experiences, the group home, the foster families, that they could have done better, say initially when you arrived or
Yeah. I think the foster family that I felt like was aloof, was just simply, it was like, here's your room, here's your towel, here's your toiletries kind of thing, dinner's at such and such a time kind of thing.
Mhm,
It just didn't make me feel at home in any way. And a lot of that, to be honest, is also the fact that I wasn't home and everything was kind of foreign and things like that. But I had just come from this group home experience that had been kind of traumatic.
mhm,
And I really just didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to. It wasn't that kind of arrangement. Like, they provided for my physical needs and took me here, to school and fed me and those things, but there was no attempt at like getting to know me or emotional connection or anything like that.
mhm. So emotional connection. Do you think you would have initially, what could they have done? Like had a conversation with you, like I'm here, even though we're gonna
Right.
provide for you. But what could they have said maybe to get that
Yeah,
communication
I
open
think the
when you were
difference,
ready?
like, if I juxtapose the 2 foster homes
Uh-huh.
experiences, like, the other foster mom right off the bat was like, "What do you not like to eat? What time do you usually go to bed?" Like, she was interested in me,
Hmm.
um, and this family was just kind of like, "Here's our schedule," and just didn't ask a lot of questions or give me a lot of even information about them.
Mm. It's like you came there, you had to fit in with everything they were
Right,
doing. Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
which
Yeah,
is very intimidating to a kid.
it is.
Yeah,
For how old were you? Like 13, 14?
12, about to be
Okay.
13, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you can imagine a normal 12-year-old,
Right,
they're kind of going to be backward anyway, a little
right,
bit intimidated,
yes.
by a new family and
Mhm,
new structure, kind of
mhm,
those new rules.
right, yeah, and the other thing that I wish had been more of a priority for everyone in my case
Hmm.
was seeing my brothers.
Yeah.
And back then, this is 30 something years ago, like, sibling visits just weren't a priority, and
Mhm,
so I did get to see them if my mom, A, showed up for her visit, and B, they were also there, which happened
mhm,
sometimes and didn't happen sometimes. Um, but I think, honestly, that I would have behaved a lot better had I
mhm,
known they were okay and where they were, and, that really played into, um my emotional upset.
mm. Yeah, I can imagine because he was your only link to your family,
Mhm.
and you two have experience. Was he older or younger?
They were my younger brothers, so
So
I
you.
had been yeah, I had been caring for them in a lot of ways my whole
Mhm,
life, and so
mhm,
it was very jarring
mhm,
to have that taken away. And I tell this train foster and adoptive families for the state that I live in, and,
mhm,
I always tell people, like, that kids really tend to blame themselves when this happens to their family. And
mhm,
so, I really viewed me not having contact with my brothers kind of as a punishment for having confided in a counselor in the first place about things that were happening in our family. And that's just how kids make sense of their world, right? So,
mhm,
I took a lot of that on, and I think that, um, we don't always do a good job as foster parents of noticing that and kind of countering that with the truth. and helping kids not carry around that big burden of, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I did this to my family. Because that nothing could be further from the truth, but that's very much how it felt in that
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah. Have you read the book Etched in Sand?
No.
So it was kind of the same scenario where Regina, the main character, is like the third in the sibling group.
Mhm.
And there's probably five or six. So she helps take care of her younger siblings. And then something happens. I can't remember exactly how it goes now. But anyway, I think she had bruises on her, and they were like, where did
Mhm.
those come from? And so they all got ripped out of the home and
Mhm.
divvied up everywhere. And
Mhm.
that's the feeling that she has, this like immense guilt for like,
Mhm.
why couldn't I just hold it together? Why couldn't I just
Oh,
be
yeah.
quiet about it? Because
And my parents at the time definitely perpetuated that myth for me. Um,
Mhm,
and there was a lot of blame placed on me for having said anything.
mhm. So not only were you having trouble getting used to your new foster family, you have all this guilt, and then there's
Mhm.
condemnation
Imposed.
or
Yeah.
something from
Yeah.
so can you tell me how you felt initially when you say you knew you were going into foster care? What were the feelings? Scared, apprehensive,
Well, that
nervous?
was very abrupt. So I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to understand that kids don't know in a lot of cases. I certainly didn't.
Hmm.
That saying something would result in that. I
Hmm.
didn't have any idea about mandated reporting and all of those types of things. So I just told a trusted adult in confidence, like, because I didn't know what to do. And then a few days later, I am, picked up at school and I don't go home again. Um, it's terrifying. Um,
Hmm.
and it's very unsettling. And confusing, and your world feels like it's spinning.
Hmm. Um, well, it's hard for me to even like breathe thinking about all this. I
Mhm,
can't imagine a child
mhm,
experiencing this. So tell me your story from the point of maybe transitioning out of foster care and how you got to the point where you wanted to become a foster mom.
okay.
Okay.
So, when I was going into ninth grade,
Mhm.
my grandparents finally got their ICPC approved
Mhm.
because they only lived 2 hours away, but because it was in a different state, it took a long time for that to get approved. And so I did go to live with my grandparents. And they were very busy professionals
Mhm.
at that point in their life, and so they put me in an all-girls boarding school, um,
Mhm.
and again, I had led a very sheltered existence, and an all-girls private boarding school is probably not the best environment for a naive girl to be placed in. So, I was just introduced to all kinds of things that help you numb pain, like boys, and you think that there wouldn't be boys on a campus, but other girls teach you how to sneak out, and drugs and alcohol and all the things.
Hmm.
And so I quickly spiraled out of control. And I don't really think that my grandparents noticed. If they did notice, they certainly didn't intervene in any way. Um, and, I had alcohol poisoning when I was 14, and 21-year-old guys were picking me up at their house on the weekend when I was 15, and they never asked, you know, about their age, or like there was no inquiry. I
Hmm.
would come home high and they would just act like it was a normal Tuesday. So, I definitely spiraled out of control in my teenage years. Um, my grandmother, um, did not support my relationship with my mom. She actively discouraged it, spoke poorly of her. Um, I could talk bad about my mom all day long, but anybody else doing that really, um, kind of, there's just that loyalty conflict.
Hmm.
And so I was going to choose my mom every time, and it really created contention between me and my grandmother. And I got myself kicked out of the boarding school in 10th grade, and I had discovered that my mom was about to have a baby. And I decided that if she was going to parent another child, because she had never gotten any of us back,
Mhm.
then she was going to parent me. So I ran away to live with my
Mhm.
mom, and that lasted not very long at all. It lasted long enough for me to turn 16 a couple weeks later, and I've been on my own ever since.
Okay. Oh. So was your grandmother, I'm just trying to fill in some blanks. Was your
Mhm.
grandmother your mom's mother?
No.
Okay, so it was like your father's.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes a little more sense too, because,
Right.
it would be different if it was her own daughter.
Yeah, and kinship placements are really complicated. Like, they
Yes,
just are. Yeah.
yes, they are. Okay. So you went back to your mom, or you ran away to your mom.
Mhm.
And then what happened? Did the
And
police
then
show up?
that blew up, and she and I could not get along. I say that, all the reasons she didn't have us in the first place still existed. And so I just went out on my own. I reconnected with my dad, and he had an ex-girlfriend that let me rent a room from her. And I moved into her apartment and rented a room and got a job. And as many foster youth do, ended up pregnant that same year at 16.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. I know you're highly educated now. When did you go to school, the college? When did you
So,
do that?
really cool little story. So, I had my son Jared when I was 17, and I met my husband when I was pregnant with Jared,
Mhm.
and he adopted him.
Mhm.
And then birth control fail, and I found myself pregnant with Matt. So by the time I was 18, I had two babies,
Okay.
and I was quite depressed. And I think it was the hormones of having back-to-back babies and all the things. And one day I got a postcard in the mail. It sounds like such a cliche story, but I promise it's my story.
Mhm.
And it said, "Are you a young mom? Do you need a timeout? XYZ church on Tuesdays, free childcare provided." And that was all I needed to see,
Sign me
because
up.
my youngest baby was so colicky, and I was just so, like, at my wit's end. And so that next Tuesday, I walked into that church that was just a few miles from our house, and I handed my babies to this older woman,
Mhm.
and I went and got loved on by these two other ladies and six other young moms. And they didn't shove Jesus down my throat. They
Mhm.
met us where we were. And part of what they did was sign me up to take my GED, because I had dropped out of school in the 10th grade. And they helped me study for it, and I passed it. And then they helped me enroll in college, because they said that my dreams didn't have to die because I had babies.
Mhm.
And that was truly a life changing um, intervention for me. And I'm still friends with one of those ladies.
Well, that's awesome. It's just like, um, I know you do believe in God, and so
Mhm.
it's like providence. I couldn't have expected this story.
No,
I couldn't have made it up. You know what I
right.
mean? It's like
Exactly.
so
Just a
crazy.
postcard in the mail. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally changed my life, and
Mhm.
um, set me on a trajectory. Now, it took 11 years for me to graduate with
Mhm.
my bachelor's degree, because we ended up getting custody of my husband's son
Mhm.
during that time. So by 20 years old, I had three children, one of whom was trauma affected.
Mhm.
Um, I adopted him in 1999. And so I only could take sometimes one class at a time, but I did finish. And then when our youngest son Matthew went to when he graduated high school in 2015, my husband had always said that when he graduated, I could go back to school for
Mhm.
grad school and we could become foster parents. And so Matt graduated in May, and I
Mhm.
was signed up that same month for classes, and we took our foster parenting licensing classes that May as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you get to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom during all this time, or did you work?
No, I worked,
Mhm.
when I wasn't in school full time, I worked.
Okay.
Um, I don't make a good stay-at-home mom. I'm not cut out for that. But, yeah, I worked in the human services field, did social work stuff, and
Okay.
worked in, nursing home admissions for a couple years.
Okay. So tell me how you decided, like you could have gone and got your bachelor's degree, anything. So how did
Mhm,
you go down the path of social work? Why did you choose counseling? Talk me
mhm.
through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I started my bachelor's degree in elementary education.
Mhm.
And they do a really smart thing your freshman year, and they send you to shadow a classroom.
Mm.
And I went to shadow a kindergarten classroom, and I came home and I told my husband, I cannot deal with our 3 little boys all, and a room full of them as it just won't work.
Right.
So I changed my major and I picked social work. And then it ended up my bachelor's degree is actually in psychology because the social work program is very structured that if you don't take a certain class at a certain time, like you can't take the next class. And with the way that I could do school, it just never worked for me. So I graduated with a degree in psychology. And then therapy had a profound impact on my life as an adult.
Okay.
I went to therapy when I was 30, and it changed everything when I started to understand myself and understand why I was certain ways and why I reacted to certain things. And so I just said, well, that's what I want to do. I want to help people make those changes and those light bulb moments of like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Now you have also written a book, is that right?
I have,
Yeah.
yes.
Tell me about that.
So I have it right here. It's called
Okay.
Foster Parent Prayers.
Aw.
It's a 30-day devotional for foster and adopted parents, just support and encouragement, my story, and other things throughout that are connected to scripture and just offer you a different prayer each day.
Oh, that's so good. So needed too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share about your life and how do you feel like you have made it because you were a foster kid? Do you feel like you've overcome this huge obstacle, or it's just like, it's just
It's
it's what it
it's
is.
Yeah, it's funny because people always say you're so resilient,
Mhm.
and we're only resilient because we have to be. And so I don't know that that's some special accomplishment or anything like that. I do know that only 3% of former foster youth graduate from college, and only 0.5% go on to graduate school. So, like, I am proud of those things.
Mhm.
I am proud of the mom that I am,
Mhm.
given the examples that I had growing up. Um, but all in all, I'm just living my life. I feel very blessed. And I'm very passionate about what I do. And I think if I'm blessed by anything, it's that I get to live out my passion every day in my work. Um, and I love that I can use my experiences both as a former foster youth and as a foster adoptive mom to help families maybe prevent placement disruption, or even better, help biological families get their children back. Like all those things that I am passionate about, I get to do every day, and
Mhm.
there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, you're right. There's nothing better than that. If you like live your dream every day, doing
Yeah,
what you love and helping so many people, I'm sure.
right. And turning
Mhm.
adversity into something positive.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've had a wonderful time talking with you. And where can people find you if they want to follow and
Sure.
listen to you? Hmm.
Yeah, my website is www.mendingheartscoaching.com, and I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I'm at Melissa Smallwood over there, and I also have a Facebook page that you can find me on.
All right. Amazing. So we'll have to go and get that book and put
Yes,
it
you
in
can order
practice.
it through my website.
Okay. All right. Well, nice talking to you. And I will maybe we'll have you back on again, or maybe go live on Instagram or something like that.
Anytime. It was really nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Nice